yourself climbing up the emerald spire into the chamber of your most hated foe, the villain who has sought to thwart you at every step. When you reach his chambers, the cloaked figure before you slowly turns about, and his face is your home. This campaign has been a dream all along.
Oh no.
Womp, womp, womp.
I am the villain.
The DM is the villain. For writing that story, that twist.
It's fair.
Unbelievable. We have to kill the DM in real
In
life.
the end,
now.
the villain is always you.
Yeah, that's fair.
I mean, that's a given, but I mean...
What are we talking about today, boys?
We are talking about villains. How to make them, what makes them good, what makes them interesting. For this, the first episode of Season 2 of Tabletop Totality Podcast. Be sure to
Pony Ranch. Come on down.
Yes, have a good time. Ride some bone ponies. You know you want to.
Or be a bone pony.
Or be a bone pony. Yeah. Get ranched up.
Drinking all that ranch.
Get ranched up. I love it. Put it on a t-shirt.
Yeah,
T-shirts you found at T-Publix.
Yeah, that t-shirt's coming out.
Season two starting off strong with the new slogans.
Yeah, get ranched.
Get ranched. And make sure that you like, comment, subscribe, ring that bell, do all that stuff. Subscribe to us on Anchor FM. Anywhere that you can get podcasts, we're available.
We're there,
Make
baby.
sure that you get it. But yeah, today we're here talking about villains for this first episode of Season 2.
That's true.
Yeah. So what? So one of the things that I think makes a good villain would be, I guess I was kind of looking at the relationship between, like, people make a lot of comparisons between Lord of the Rings and the Harry Potter series, as far as like Voldemort and Saruman with the Horcruxes versus the One Ring or the Rings of Power. I mean, I'm in Team Tolkien all the way.
Team
so
Tolkien all the way. I don't think anybody here.
Yeah. Amber's probably mad at us, but
that's okay. You know, I just try and not compare them, because then you're better off. You know,
you can enjoy them both.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but the thing is that you have like the Ring of Power, and you have Sauron, and you have Frodo, who's the ring bearer, and you have the Fellowship of the Ring, and everybody around them in this circle that's affected by this ring and is affected by the villain. And none of them personally know Sauron, other than Gandalf.
Yeah,
right?
Out of the Fellowship, let's say. Out of the Fellowship.
Right. And Gandalf knows what he's about, and Gandalf knows that he's no good. But Frodo is faced with, he's tasked with fighting this villain, and if you're going to play it out like a game, like, Sauron's the big bad evil guy for your campaign, and you don't necessarily know him, but you're affected by him. Whereas the Harry Potter thing, the Voldemort thing, the villain is known to you
right off the bat. You're
very well.
You were in the crib.
Yeah. And there's a personal vendetta, where Voldemort attacked and killed your parents. Spoiler alert.
Well, I mean, that is a pretty big spoiler.
Read a book. I'm not going to apologize. Read a book.
Or watch a movie, even.
Yeah, whatever.
It's been out for a while.
Yeah. In the lore.
It doesn't ruin the whole aspect of it either. But anyway.
Yeah.
No,
so I think that's like, it's an interesting thing to do, because, we were joking around in our little skit, at the startup here, and I was like, oh yeah, the villain's you. But you could have that where it's like, oh yeah, like all along this villain was your twin brother that you lost at birth. And I think that there's ways of doing that where it could be cool, like it could be effective, like even though that's like a kind of a tired trope, like I feel like you could do it in a cool way. Like where you can allude to the brother the whole time, that like the character knows that he has this missing relative and is always wondering about where the relative ended up. And you could see that you basically ended up on two different paths, where you became the hero and your twin brother became the villain.
Yeah.
And that could be done cool, or it could be done like kind of like how I revealed it in the skit, where it's like, yeah, it's your brother all along.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, campaign's over. See you guys.
It's done. Thanks for coming.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's been a good time.
Who's DMing next?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's, we're trying to talk about what makes a villain intriguing. And I think some of it's the delivery, but it could also be the familiarity or the lack thereof.
Well, like
to the characters.
Yeah.
You know?
So like even in the realm of Middle Earth, right? Everybody knows the villain. You know what I mean? There's good and evil, and that is cut and clear. But it goes to this aspect of never, besides the battle previously, where Sauron gets his hand cut off,
Choppy choppy.
and they see the first aspects of peace in that from darkness. You still know that evil is there, right? The head villain isn't so much there, but evil is still about. It just gets a face once the ring comes back into light. You know what I mean? And so that's another way that you can carry a villain all the way through, right? So that's also the same idea with the Horcruxes. Yeah, you could end Voldemort right then and there, but if you don't do anything about these Horcruxes, the villain stays.
Yeah, and I think one of the really cool thing that Tolkien obviously did with the ring is that it's something that is desirable to the peoples of Middle Earth. That there is no people that just inherently don't want this ring or wouldn't be tempted to use it, other than motherfucking Tom Bombadil, because he's the man. Get ranched.
Yeah.
2021 season 2.
Yes.
Get ranched.
No,
but even there, because of his non-need to use it, like it destroys him as a counter to this villain, right? So that's another cool spot of creating a villain, and what makes that villain in Lord of the Rings so interesting is because there is other creatures who are powerful or more powerful than your villain. That is always going to be in your world, but if you just make it, nope, this villain is the all-powerful, nothing can stop them, it doesn't feel as genuine, because there should be something. It doesn't have to be, but in that sense, here's Tom Bombadil just not caring. He's been here since forever, and before forever.
Yeah,
he has no problem with putting on the ring.
Diamonds forever? No, but Tom Bombadil is.
But
what's up?
But anyway, before we get even further into the Lord of the Rings hole, that we're
this podcast is about the Lord of the Rings now.
It makes that three-dimensional character, or that three-dimensional world around this villain, because no matter what storytelling you're doing, when it involves a villain, that is your centerpiece. Everybody always thinks it's the party, when it's not really. That's the focal point, but your centerpiece is how well you can develop this villain and what this villain is doing to your world. It's the effects around it, at least in my take.
Well, the villain is the great causation. The villain is the great, the great mover in the world, or can be, has the potential to be. Doesn't necessarily have to be, but typically your villains fall in line of being they could be the aggressor, they could be somebody that makes things happen. And certainly that's a good point.
In my opinion, if you're writing a story that has like a villain in it, you should be writing the story based around like the plan of the villain. You should start with the ending of like what happens if the villain succeed, and then move back from there and sort of be like, well, if he doesn't succeed at this, then this happens. But if he does succeed, then this happens, and sort of move back from there. And that's kind of like your story beats for
Yeah.
your campaign is like, well, if he's thwarted at this point, he can still do this to achieve his goal. But then, like, if he doesn't do this, then he can do this to achieve his goal. And like, what is his goal? Like, what
Are
is it
you
that he
saying
wants
like
to
get
do?
like the overtired, over dedicated detective board where you're
Yes,
like stringing all the lines together,
exactly.
And
find out
turn
who.
yourself into one specific person going crazy in a mailroom.
Yes,
Exactly.
yes.
Exactly. That should be your villain writing
Yeah, that's your
techniques.
villain board.
Yeah, that's your villain board.
That's it. That's
Well, a villain board is, I mean, that's actually a pretty cool idea. I mean, I tend to, that's how a lot of my ideas just, I do like little bubbles,
Hmm.
I remember like we used to do the Venn diagrams and everything in school, but
Yeah.
I kind of like, I don't know, sometimes my thoughts will come very rapid fire and I'll just be like, okay, like, yep, scary kobold dinner party. Write that down and go with it,
yeah.
Yeah.
And like, and I'll leave it, and it's just like, okay, yep, come back to that, whenever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I definitely think like flushing out the overall, like before you even get how your villain acts, what's their demeanor, what is their issue with the party that you're overlording for.
Yeah.
um it's good to have at least your steps.
Yeah.
So, of course, the age old thing, the big old hero quest is that your villain is going to change the world as the party knows it for worse. Right? That's the one we'll run with. I think is the easiest one to do because there's multiple different avenues to have a villain, you know. But if that's your main thing, you could easily plot out, okay, they have to be able to infiltrate and take over leadership of this area, destroy the structure, slowly break it down so that structure can't fight back, and then enact my change, right?
Hmm.
That's what happens in Lord of the Rings, even in Harry Potter. That's how Voldemort does it in a more devious way because he's luring all these people in with greed, power, whatever it may be, to side for him and break down everybody that's resisting him. That's the whole
Yeah.
point of why the resistance in
Well,
Harry
and
Potter. Yeah, go ahead, Cody.
oh no, I was just thinking that I was thinking of the Christopher Nolan Batman trilogies,
Yep.
and I was thinking that like Ra's al Ghul has like this like very elaborate plan that probably would have worked if Batman hadn't intervened
Yeah.
because it was well thought
Hmm.
out. It had funding. It had a goal.
Yep.
Like it was crazy, but they were gonna do it, and they were
Mhm.
dedicated enough people to do it. And then the Joker comes in, second movie, and he's like, here's the mob, and here's the underdark, the undercity of Gotham, and
Yep.
here's the political power structure of Gotham. I'm gonna flip it all on its head
Yep.
because I don't care about the rules. I don't care about the structures. I don't care about any of your codes. You don't mess with this person, I'll mess with them twice as hard.
Yep.
And he's like, that's his whole thing. Is like, whatever you're gonna do, I'm gonna do the opposite of. And then Bane, by the time Bane comes in, Bane's like, well, yeah, here's all the things that have happened already, and I'm going to manipulate all of them,
Yep.
Yep.
and I'm going to manipulate all of them, and I'm going to turn the city against itself because it's already been shown that it can happen.
Yeah.
Hmm.
It's already primed.
So you have three different villains right there that come into the same setting, dealing with a lot of the same characters, and they do three wildly different things
Hmm.
to reach their goals.
Yep. No,
You
and like,
know,
and I just think that goes to the aspect of knowing what those goals are going into it when you're creating your villain. Then you go in, well, all right, if I'm gonna have this villain flip everything elsewhere, not care about anything, then they're just gonna be, their whole demeanor is going to be a fact of intelligence. But if somebody just looks at it point blank, they're gonna think they're crazy and that nothing makes sense because that's how they are perceiving themselves, aka the Joker in that series. He
Yeah.
acts like a complete buffoon in a sense to all of these other people because he's not scared of anything. He'll do whatever he wants. It looks like all of his stuff isn't like premeditated in a sense, that it's just of gumption, but
It's chaos, yeah.
it's not. It's
Right.
it's just depicted that way, and I think that is a good aspect of once you start building your villain's overall like demeanor. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
How?
well,
Mhm.
that's sort of like his cloak and dagger,
Yep,
that's like
exactly.
it's his disguise. It's like, "Oh, you think that I'm this freak, that I'm incapable of thinking of all these things and planning this out," but he shows them time and time again that he's got them beat at every corner,
Yep.
Yeah.
you know?
Yep.
So yeah, it's definitely that aspect of, you know, you're storyboarding it. You got to know what you're doing, and then how do you, as you said, how do you disguise that? Because every good villain doesn't. It's not like freaking James Bond over here, right? That's where they give away their whole thing at a certain point.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you the monologue of my whole
Yeah,
plan, you know?
don't get me wrong, that is a traditional way of writing villains because it keeps it action based, right? If you're not
Yeah.
trying to, maybe your campaign that you're running is very cut and dry. You want your players to instantly know what's going on and they have to meet the time crunch of you have to get here to here and stop this plan, otherwise they succeed. That's fine too.
Mhm.
Where that works. That is a good and interesting villain in that setting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it won't work in a group of players that wish they want to discover more, be a little bit more role play heavy, detect things, interact with the villain. It isn't going to work because that villain isn't deep. It's not. It doesn't have
Right.
play with. It's just somebody who's just trying to take over
And
the
that's
Yeah.
world.
and that's the
Yeah.
thing, is that it really comes down to what style of villain, or what the ultimate
Hmm.
goal of the villain is. Like we've said
Yeah.
before, yeah, with the goal, but you also have to think like some villains aren't necessarily masterminds. They can
No.
just be cruel. They can
Yeah.
just be mean spirited. Like a lot of the orcs, a lot of the Kai you see in the Lord of the Rings, like Lurtz and
Yeah.
Grishnak and all of them, like they have their own individual motivations. You
Mhm.
know,
Yeah.
I mean, they're all supposedly working for the same team, but they're all willing to kill each other at a moment's
Well,
notice.
it's no different than also a lot of the humans though in
Right?
in Lord of the Rings as well, or even in across the board. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
Yeah.
there's easily people who will turn on others,
yeah.
to and that's kind of the whole idea of Lord of the Rings is third age, as a men and orc, but
Yeah.
enough of that.
And I
But
mean,
that's
like, and I mean, like you were saying, like it depends on like what the goal of the villain is in the story. But even you can even take it a step further and say, what's the goal of your game?
Yeah.
Like if you're writing a one shot, you're not going to want some complicated villain who has all kinds of crazy stuff. You might just want like the goblin leader of this goblin army is just a jerk, and you got to go kill him.
Yeah, it's
And
marching on your hometown.
yeah, he's raiding a village. You got to go kick his ass.
Yeah.
Like that might be a kind of a villain that you want to write, and you can make those into your villains. Something simple. They don't
Hmm.
all have to be like these big complex like
Exactly. Yeah.
people that you relate to or whatever. You can just make something an antagonistic force, just a basic antagonist, just for
and
the sake of having an adventure.
sometimes too, and I think this was something that like I really appreciate about George Martin.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
George Martin is kind of on my shit list because
Well,
actually
he
I'm going to
needs to
say
finish his
he's on
work.
my shit list.
Yeah.
He needs to finish his books. And what the hell happened with the last couple seasons of Game of Thrones? What
Well,
in the hell, George?
to be fair, I don't think that's George's fault, but
Uh,
He
well,
was
he
in
you know
on the
what? He
writing.
signed off on it somewhere.
Exactly. He
But
gave notice to the writing team. He directed them
it would have been a perfect
in a
time to drop
way.
some hot fire book right after that season ended and be like, "This is the real story,
yeah,
folks."
yep.
But
I won't disagree with you there.
yeah.
I think
Anyway,
his
but one of the
sales would have
things
been
that
through the
he
roof.
oh my god. Yes. Yes.
But
Anyhow, the the thing that he did well in Westeros, which is something that I took over into my world into Toleraxia,
Make
is that
everybody at war with everybody.
but you don't necessarily have to have your villains figured out or even identified as villains yet.
No.
Because once you get your players into your world and things start happening and things start interacting, they could do something early on that could come back to bite them in the ass 17 levels later.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it could be totally plausible, and it could be done in a way where they could be like, oh my god, that makes total sense, or what,
Yeah.
and I think if you're gonna do something like that, it's ambitious. You'd have to
Well, mind you, we've
keep
been
track of
playing
so much,
that
but
campaign. We've
yeah.
been playing for what now? Almost 3 years, something
yes.
like
Yes,
that.
and we're at level 12. Should we be concerned about level 17? Because I mean,
It's
like,
just
I'm
when
worried.
all of our allies betray us.
I'm
No,
Don't worry
but
about it.
the thing with that world was is that I wanted to present multitudes of things. So
Mhm.
there's choices for everything. There's a civil war going. So you can be part of one kingdom, you can be part of another, or you can be in between. Yeah, and
Mhm.
if you're living on the frontier, you basically are just kind of
Just trying to live.
yeah, you're just trying to live, and unfortunately, either side will take advantage of you.
Yep.
And then there is all these different pantheons of gods, and they are all dictated by the elder gods. And the elder gods are really trying to gain back some of their power, and they're squabbling with each other. So there's a choice between your side, there's a choice between your gods, and they all have different motivations. But one thing I did on top of that is I added a clock where you have
The good old doomsday clock.
the creator of all of this is supposedly quite angered by everything that has come to be, and he is going to break from his bindings. He was imprisoned by his children, these other gods, and he's going to break from his bindings and come back to the world. And
Hit that reset button.
yeah, and so a lot of people are like, well, that's terrible, that has to be stopped at all costs. But then they're looking at the different gods that they can go, like what sides they can go, and they're like, well, this person's terrible, or this person, like, yeah, I get it what they're trying to do, but they also do human sacrifices, and I'm not down with that. And
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
so I wanted it, I wanted, like, that's part of the villainy in that world, is the unknown, the questioning, the you know the
Well,
uneasiness.
it's not even that, right? So it's a great way to disguise villains when you give a easy out for your group to be like, yep, that's the person we have to be worried about. But that's not the case in many
Yeah.
deep layered situations. Like, yeah, when everybody talks about the villain, they think it has to be one person. That's not true. You could have several villains. That's how a plot develops, right? You have the villain of that act, you have the villain of this act. In Cody's setting, we know who the final act villain is, and we're just trying to make sure we don't side with a villain in any of the acts to come up to that, right? Is pretty much the overarching strategy of this game.
Yeah. And in the terms of villains, the final, like the potential final villain, isn't even a villain because there's already a villain that is an actual villain who's doing a bunch of evil shit.
The whole time through, you start going through these acts, and I think this is a great, like, just a great usage of our campaign that we're playing in, because you're going through, you start off, this person's the villain, this is what you're told, they're the evil one, they're the one who wants to destroy the world, and then you slowly realize, oh snap, this person actually has a decent reason for wanting to destroy the world. Like, are we the baddies for stopping him, or should we just side with him? Like,
Yeah.
it's a
Yeah.
constant joke that we have as a party
Yeah.
whenever
It's like,
we
well,
sit
is he
down to
wrong?
play this. Yeah, to sit down and play this game. Like, I have honest worries that my character in that is just going to side with the reset button and just be
Yeah.
like, you know what, we kind of fucked up,
Let's just redo it,
Let's just
bud.
redo
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Eventually, things will be all right. Um, but that allows you to create these more fleshed out villains. And as Cody was saying, if you're going to be playing this, you want this long stretched out campaign. Keep track of what your players do in the beginning, because then you can use that. Now that person, maybe they went into a city, the mayor was a real asshole, they told the mayor fuck off, tried to out him. That mayor is going to have hard feelings against the party. The next time they go through paths, that mayor may side now with the enemy of their enemy to take them out, to seek their vengeance. So now you have
Right.
another layer of a villain, right? That
Yeah.
has motive. It has that level of fulfillment
Even
as
something small as you knocked over the town drunk and
yeah,
everybody laughed at him. And then many levels later when the villains are looking for your party, they stumble across the town drunk and he's more than willing to take them to you
yeah.
Yeah.
because you embarrassed him. And he might not understand that these people are going to come kill you or they're going to ruin everything you have planned, but
He
what
just
does he
thinks
care?
he thinks it's
Right.
gonna
You've
be
already
an
you've already
embarrassment to your
insulted him.
party. You know what I mean? He's
Right.
getting that level of payback because look at a lot of movies, a lot of different stories. That's usually how the hero gets sold out, or somebody in their party gets sold out, is because they mistreated one person who
Yeah.
they thought
Mhm.
was insignificant,
Right.
Yeah.
couldn't help them in any way,
Well,
and
isn't that is like the whole the 300 thing with the Spartan with the malformed Spartan where
exactly.
they're like you don't belong here,
You
and then he
can't
was like,
raise a
well,
shield. You can't
yeah,
depict honest things, but the
right.
way it was brought up demeaned that person.
Oh yeah, to the
Gave
point
them
where he wasn't
something
gonna stop.
exactly, gave them something of
Yeah.
malice to hold on to
Yeah.
towards the hero of that story, right? So it allows for that development. And I think it is great if you're starting a long campaign to kind of just have a basis for your world, know your end act villain, as I said prior, let them play a little bit, give them a couple of conflicts.
Even if you don't know the end act villain, like
Well, you,
I started this campaign. I had a villain,
yeah,
right? And I had a villain, and they went after this villain, and they went after this villain's group, and everybody that was trying to resurrect this like dead god. And then once that was all done, they kind of realized, like, yes, this was important that we did this, but this is not the end.
yeah,
This is like
Mhm.
we just scratched the very tip of this iceberg, and we realized that there's a lot more shady shit going on.
yeah,
So you can do that too, where you don't have to have everything planned out. Oh, here's the villain from right out of the gate, and like here's all of his motivations. You can let that mold over time.
yeah.
Somebody like Sauron, and like we were talking before, like Sauron and Gandalf know each other. Yeah, because they're both of the same species of spirits from the holy, from the land of the gods.
Yep,
They Gandalf was afraid of Sauron
yep.
from always,
Always. Oh yeah,
So
time and
like
time again.
most people don't know that stuff, but that adds like so much more to the clash between them,
Yeah.
Hmm.
you know? Even to when Sauron's servants talk down to Gandalf and
Yes.
refer to him as old man and graybeard and all these things. It's Sauron talking through his
Oh
minions
yeah,
to
Mhm.
insult someone he knows,
yeah,
so that it's different.
yep.
So you can there's a lot of, I mean, we've kind of talked like a big broad stroke of thing about villains, but you don't I think going in with somewhat of an idea, having some things happening in your world is cool, but make your villain, tailor it, not maybe to the story that you might have in your head of what's going to happen, because what you have in your head is not what's going to happen,
Oh
because
no.
as your players play this game and as your friends are involved in it, things are going to change.
Yeah.
So don't necessarily run with it of the story that you think you have in your head, but tailor it to the story that you and your friends are making at the table.
Oh, that's exactly
And if
it.
you do that, I don't think you'll have a problem with a villain being boring or being nonsensical or coming out of left field.
Yeah.
Like I can't imagine that would happen because I never thought this campaign would run for 3 years, the one that we're
Yeah.
playing.
Well,
No
yeah.
way. But I have no lack of things that I can do.
Mhm.
Like, and I'm not
It's
bragging. I'm not saying that in a bragging way. I'm just saying I know so much about your individual characters and motives and backstories that I am not at a lack of ideas of what I can do for you moving forward.
Oh yeah,
Right.
well, it goes into that aspect, and I think it's one of the best things because I recently talked to another one of my friends. She's starting a campaign and everything like that, and
Neil has no friends.
no, I
Disclaimer.
don't have any friends. I'm lying. I made this all up. Um,
He's
but
not even our friend,
the
really.
first thing, yeah, I'm just a work colleague. It's just for
Yeah.
the money, man. All of this is a facade. I'm sorry you had to hear it in season
Yeah.
two,
Season two
episode
reveal.
one. It
The
was
three-piece tendy is a lie.
yeah,
Yeah.
it was supposed to be much later when we made it, and there was some infighting. I think like season 20 was the plan.
Yeah.
We just divided that by 10. But one of the best things that she was talking to me about this and was like, hey, I want all of my players. I have this map. I have plans for this country, and this country. But there is 5 other countries that I have nothing planned for. And they were like, I want you as players, if you come from there, and this is an area you want to build that story, build that area, because and then get back to get back to her with all the information and stuff like that. And as she was telling me this, and I like just let her continue to talk about it because I was like, this is already a great idea. I don't need to even add any input because
Yeah.
it's right there. You're gonna have players who are somewhat invested in the world, and it may not start out that way, but now you get them. Now the party has to venture into that area. Oh, boom, that person has so much to run with if they choose. You know what I mean? They're gonna build with that world. They're gonna be a part of that
Yes.
world. And
Yeah.
then what makes that so much better is now your villain can destroy certain aspects of what their character cares about and what them as a player is personally invested in, right?
I think it's a cool thing, but I think it's also a double-edged sword because I think back to season one of Critical Role, and I
Mhm.
think back to the sorcerer. I can't remember his name, but the Dragonborn sorcerer that was with them.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about,
I know.
but
I know who you're talking about.
right. So he was a part of their team, and then they had differences, and they left. And but this guy came from a draconic background, and his nation was a draconic nation, and his father was like the king or was like an ambassador to the
Yeah,
king
he
or
was an
whatever.
ambassador. Yeah.
And it was like he just had this like huge backstory to this country that he was from, and they weren't playing in this country, or this land was, it was neighboring this land. And towards the end he started to really kind of like just like abuse it, like, oh well, my father's going to send legions of dragon knights to come and avenge my, somebody upset me.
Yeah.
And it's like, so I can understand where it's like, yeah, it's cool to like have like, oh yeah, I have like this country and this country and you're from it and everything. I think it's just for that DM, you just have to set limitations right from the get go.
Well,
Yeah, just be like, yeah, it's its own country, cool or whatever, but we're gonna be playing mostly here, or
well,
you
it's
know,
not even that though, because I see your worry there, but that's a worry that any overlord naturally has.
yeah,
We've all experienced it where you get a player who's in here, or even you have an overlord who allows you to be something and says, "Yep, your character is this. I'm good with that. That's grand." And then you try and use that, and it's squashed on. And now your character doesn't have that backstory, where
Mhm.
also as an overlord, yeah, all right, this person's from a country over here, they're the son of the king, You think the king is gonna, go to war with this country? This country also has this and this other country as allies. You're the one who's playing adventurer as the king's son.
Good
Yeah.
point.
You know,
Yeah, but hey,
who do you
back
think
to
you are?
but then going back to the topic of the podcast, maybe your father is the king, and maybe your father does decide that he wants to go to war with this country that you're in. Now you've got a villain that you
now
got to
you have
deal
a
with.
villain.
And do you fight your father? Do you attack your father, or do you?
Why not?
Well, also
because he's your father, and if he's doing what you wanted him to, but now it's ruining everybody else's lives.
Well, now, all the people who you're connected with in this other country, if you tied together, who are friends with, your father has no care for that.
Yeah.
That kingdom has no care for that. They're
Exactly.
here to start war because that's what you wanted.
Yeah,
you
you
know
wanted
what I mean?
this.
So
This is what you wanted.
now you have to play the aspect of not all villains need to be slain, right? There could be an act of appeasement.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Where now you have to negotiate out of this stalemate, right? Like
Mhm.
even in the one campaign that we have, both sides are at civil war. I don't think anybody believes that one side needs to beat the other. It's that these two sides need to just stop fighting.
Mhm.
Yes.
And really the villain is whoever allows the war to continue at this point. And then that villain could be anything. It could be culturally, the two sides are just so split that the cultural difference is the villain. You know what I mean? You could have many different aspects of villainy without it being embodied by a single person as well.
Yeah.
Which that's a whole nother topic. We've kind of gone through a shit ton of stuff.
Yeah, we did.
We put you guys into the rabbit hole of Lord of the Rings and then brought you back out and then dipped your pinky toe back in. And
it never stops. It never ever stops.
For Steve, it will never stop.
It will never stop until he is one of us.
We will get you, Steve.
I'm living in a waking Lord of the Rings nightmare, and it's
not a nightmare,
horrific.
baby.
It's a beautiful, beautiful land.
But that's just a little bit of our take on what makes an interesting villain. There's so many different avenues that we couldn't even just continue to discuss. But I will say this, if you listened all the way through, or even you jumped around, you got to this point now and you're listening to me talk, and you want us to discuss different aspects that we talked about here. You have a question about, what about this? What about that? Hit us up on Instagram. We're on Reddit. It'd be a pretty cool thing to bring over to our community over there and just have a bunch of people talking about it. We'll weigh in and stuff like that. You know what I mean? You want to see how we create villains? Go over to our drive-through RPG. Get one of our adventures over there.
We have like 7 free adventures up on drive-through RPG right now.
We will be having our first paid for adventure coming out here soon. Yeah, it's gonna be crazy. So stop over
there. Get ranched up, son.
Yeah, season 2 coming at you with a whole bunch of new stuff. But, you have no idea. There's a bunch of new stuff coming for season 2, and it's gonna be real cool. And we're really hoping to show you a lot of cool stuff that you're all gonna enjoy.
It's gonna be pretty epic.
Indeed.
Just have a bunch of stuff that we're always willing to talk about. We always want to hear feedback on it. You see a creature and you're like, hey, I don't know about this. You're running one of our games and you're like, hey, this NPC here, or this villain here. Maybe I think you guys should have done this. Give us input. Because that's what we are here for in the community, is to give our input on the game, give our input on what other people are doing. So
absolutely,
it's only fair we get a little bit back, negative, positive, whatever it may be.
Constructive criticism.
Exactly.
But I would like to thank everybody who's listening today. As I said, and what Steve said earlier, make sure we, like, subscribe, share, whatever you gotta do.
Become a bone pony.
Yeah. Ranch it up.
Ranch it up, baby.
And then also make sure you tune in for our monthly live streams that we do to raise money for Extra Life. It's a great charity that does a bunch of fundraisers for the Child Miracle Network of hospitals to allow kids be kids while they seek treatment for whatever illness, injury, whatever it may be that was out of their control that a normal child shouldn't have to deal with at the age that
we've been some of us have benefited from those hospitals personally. And we have raised several $1,000s for them, even though we're a new upstart business, and we're just going to keep doing it.
Yeah, our second year doing it with quotation marks, because our first year was only a couple of months.
Yeah.
So definitely, tune in.
Yeah, and those are at twitch.tv/tabletop totality, and we do those pretty much the last Saturday of every month. So
you can always go over
this month though. It's going to be the 20th and 21st.
21st and 22nd.
Oh, see, he got me.
21st and 22nd.
I'll edit that.
All right,
get that right out of the podcast.
But yeah, it is Tabletop Appreciation Weekend, so we will be
21st, 22nd.
A bunch of tabletop games from. I think we were talking about doing a couple of our own adventures and running some friends through it. So you guys can also see how our adventures work from there. And then one of us got some spicy new game in beta from Free League Publishing.
Yeah, Free League.
One Ring game that they just recently created another version of.
Free League, we love you.
My nightmare never ends, people.
So Steve is gonna be in a crash course of Lord of the Rings stuff as I prepare.
As if I'm not already every day that I spend.
Steve, you're like this little hobbit.
These are all pop quizzes.
We're gonna pull you out of your burrow, take you on a big adventure.
No.
Gonna get Tom Bombadil to give you a dagger, and you're off into the world.
No, that's right, man. I want to hide in my hobbit hole.
Nope. It's your birthday, Steve.
It's your destiny, Steve.
So we're gonna take you out on an adventure.
Yeah, it's your 111th birthday.
Yeah. But
yeah, all the shit, man.
For that reason, I'm out.
Yeah, business is over.
Yeah. But thank you for coming out.
Thank you, Bone Ponies.
Yes.
Good to have you back on the ranch now. We had a little sojourn. It's nice to have you back.
Yeah, a little bit of ranch up on this day. And make sure you check our merch out for that new shirt that's going to be dropping here.
Get ranched up.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Peace.
See you later.
Later.